Ukraine's military intelligence chief says nearly 11,000 North Korean troops are in Russia now and will be ready to fight in Ukraine by November 1st.
Putin must be weakened to a greater extent than most people think. We know that Putin's losing a lot of people.
This new axis of China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea joining forces and sowing discord around the world is evidence that World War III is already underway. Has the next global war already started and people just don't realize it?
I don't think so, Jen. I think, again, it is a very complex world, but I would not describe it as World War III.
Hopefully,
Austin should be worried about increased isolationism spreading to Ukraine actually benefits states like Pennsylvania, where much of the artillery shells are made.
Texas,
painful.
you name it. There are a number of states that benefit directly. We do not send cash over to Ukraine. We draw down equipment, whether it be vehicles or weapons or munitions, and we replace those weapons with or munitions with something that's
you might feel it a little
bit because you're going
what is at stake if the U.S. stops funding Ukraine?
There's a lot at stake, and I don't want to live in a world where a tyrant can wake up and decide to erase his sovereign neighbors for it. All of the Baltic states are very concerned about that. They rightfully feel that they would be next on the menu.
We will have more from our exclusive interview with Secretary Austin tonight on Special Report with Brett Baer at 6 p.m. Eastern. Sandra?
Great stuff. Jennifer Griffin live from Rome for us. Jennifer, thank you. John?
Sandra, the White House set to brief ahead now as the FBI now confirms it is investigating whether a leak of top secret U.S. intelligence was intentional. The documents revealed satellite images of Israeli warplanes preparing for a strike on Iran. According to Congressman Michael Waltz, is the former commander of the Green Berets, and he joins me now. So this is looking like a leak more than a hack. A hack would be troubling, but a leak even more so.
Yeah, it's even more damaging, John, because of the breach of trust with the relationship between Israel and the United States. Israel regularly, and I want everybody to understand this, on a regular basis, shares intelligence with us and has stopped attacks on the U.S. homeland, particularly right now with our wide open border and ISIS and Al-Qaeda roaring back in Afghanistan after that debacle. And then we also share technology with them, the base technology for the Iron Dome. We actually shared with Israel, and then they built out. If we breach that trust, it's enormously damaging. We already have Bibi Netanyahu and his government not informing us now when they conduct major operations. And now if they're afraid that they can't share information because we have Iran apologists and sympathizers like Biden's lead negotiator, Rob Malley, who had his security clearance pulled, and we can't get any answers. That's a huge, huge problem with our greatest ally in the Middle East.
What's really troubling about this is that apparently Biden and Netanyahu have been talking about the scope and then the framing of a potential Israeli attack on Iran. And then the information that we've been gleaning through the Geospatial Intelligence Agency gets out there. Here's what Pat Ryder said about it yesterday at the Pentagon. Listen here.
The FBI is investigating the alleged leak of classified documents and working closely with the Department of Defense and the intelligence community on this. I would say anytime there's an allegation of potential unauthorized disclosures, we're going to take it seriously. That's exactly what we're doing.
So if this is designed to undermine Israel's pending strike on Iran, I mean, it strikes me that this would violate a number of laws beyond the Official Secrets Act.
Oh, yeah, it's a violation of the Espionage Act. It's treason. And right now, I think Israel has a golden moment, and we should support them. President Trump has said he would support them to go after their nuclear program. John, one can only imagine if one of those missiles coming from Iran was even suspected of having a nuclear warhead. You can't wait till the mushroom cloud goes off before you respond. This relationship should be airtight. It was under President Trump, and the most frustrating thing at all of all of it
You're
is there
welcome.
is a sanctions and an economic solution much more than there is a military solution. You dry up the cash and you tell China, stop buying Iranian oil or you can't buy ours, and this would all solve itself.
That would require getting tough on Iran, and there's no sign that that's about to happen. I want to ask you about, speaking of getting tough, something that Biden let slip yesterday. He was in Concord, New Hampshire for a campaign event. Listen to what he said about locking Trump up. Listen here.
I mean, so I know this sounds bizarre. It sounds like if I said this 5 years ago, you'd lock me up. We gotta lock him up. Politically, lock him out, that's what we have to do.
We got to lock him up. Politically, lock him up. And a lot of people say that the first words that come out of your mouth are,
Well, he said that, John, he said the quiet part out loud. And I'll remind everyone, his number 3 politically appointed official from the Department of Justice stepped down from the DOJ and was sitting in a New York courtroom, literally trying to lock Biden's political candidate up. I mean, if that's not weaponization of the Department of Justice, I don't know what is. And the old adage, they accuse you that of which they are actually doing. They've weaponized the Justice Department to go after political opponents. And we want to, all this talk about fascism and dictatorship, that's a hallmark, and they're doing it.
right. Well, you were pointing out when we were talking offline that they're the ones who are accusing Trump of fascism, yet there's a lot of things the Democrats want to do that would be suggestive that, if there's a threat to democracy, maybe coming from the other side.
Yeah, you got these allegations of rhetoric of President Trump, but stacking the Supreme Court, right? Getting rid of the filibuster, going after the key elements of our democracy, that is taking away the checks and balances that prevent anybody from having too much power.
All right, Michael Wolff, it's good to talk to you. Thank you for a copy of the new book, Hard Truths, here. Think and Lead Like a Green Beret. Make for some good reading.
If I can do the tribes of Afghanistan, I can deal with the tribes of the swamp, John.
All right.
And that's how you do it.
Well, we've got some separation here between us and the swamp, so that's good. Michael, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
All right, how small towns in America are buckling under the burden of the migrant surge under the Biden-Harris administration. How one Indiana community is paying the price. Plus this.
Makes me think that, well, you just are people and you're coming up with other alternatives and other reasons for that.
Vice President Harris calling in former President Obama to try to shore up support from Black voters, but is the scold helping or hurting her case? We'll take that up.
Stay ahead of your moderate to severe eczema and show off clearer skin and less itch with Dupixent, the #1 prescribed biologic by dermatologists and allergists that helps heal your skin from within. Serious allergic reactions can occur and can be severe. Tell your doctor about new or worsening eye problems such as eye pain or vision changes, including blurred vision, joint aches and pain, or a parasitic infection. Don't change or stop asthma medicines without talking to your doctor. Ask your eczema specialist about Dupixent.
Hi, I'm William Devane. Right now, there's a serious discussion about who our next president will be. A Republican, a Democrat, an independent. The future of our country is hanging in the balance, which is why, as a good American, I'm going to do 2 things. I'm going to vote, and I'm going to buy gold from Roslyn Capital. Buying gold from Roslyn helps protect me against runaway inflation and all that paper money being printed around the world by unstable governments. Whether you want new or old gold or premium collector coins, Roslyn has them all. And what you order is what you get. No gimmicks, no nonsense, no hassle. So do your part to protect your future. Vote and buy gold from Roslyn Capital.
Call Roslyn Capital now to get your free gold kit, free silver kit, and free IRA kit with smart ways you can transfer or roll over your IRA. Call 800-630-8900, 800-630-8900, 800-630-8900.
Did you watch the news lately? Israel's under attack. Anti-Semitism like I never thought I would see.
Did you hear about Samantha's boy Max?
No.
He got spit on just walking at him.
I mean, that's scary. What about Kamala?
Oh, busy defending the squad.
Trump I never cared for, but at least
Fox News alert live to the White House where John Kirby's at the podium. He is talking about Biden using leverage in Russia with the Ukraine war effort. Let's hear what he's saying.
Military. We have briefed the Ukrainian government on our understanding of this situation, and we're certainly consulting closely with other allies, partners, and countries in the region on the implications of such a dramatic move and on how we might respond. I expect to have more to share on all of that in the coming days. For the time being, we will continue to monitor this situation closely. But let's be clear. If North Korean soldiers do enter into combat, this development would demonstrate Russia's growing desperation in its war against Ukraine. Russia is suffering extraordinary casualties on the battlefield every single day, but President Putin appears intent on continuing this war. If Russia is indeed forced to turn to North Korea for manpower, this would be a sign of weakness, not strength, on the part of the Kremlin. It would also demonstrate an unprecedented level of direct military cooperation between Russia and North Korea, with security implications in Europe as well as the Indo-Pacific. As we've said before, Russia's cooperation with the North Korean military is in violation of multiple UN Security Council resolutions, which prohibit the procurement of arms from North Korea and military arms training. This move is likewise a violation. At President Biden's direction, the United States continues to surge security assistance to Ukraine. In just the past week, which I think you've seen, the United States has announced more than $800 million in security assistance to meet Ukraine's urgent battlefield needs. Now, looking ahead, the United States is on track to provide Ukraine with hundreds of additional air defense interceptors, dozens of tactical air defense systems, additional artillery, significant quantities of ammunition, hundreds of armored personnel carriers and infantry fighting vehicles, and thousands of additional armored vehicles, all of which will help keep Ukraine effective on the battlefield. And in coming days, the United States will announce a significant sanctions tranche targeting the enablers of Russia's war in Ukraine located outside of Russia. The Ukrainian military continues to fight bravely and effectively, and President Biden is determined to provide Ukraine with the support that it needs to prevail. To that end, the president announced today that of the $50 billion that the G7 committed to loan Ukraine back in June, the United States will provide a loan of $20 billion. The other $30 billion in loans will come from a combination of our G7 partners, including the European Union, the United Kingdom, Canada, and Japan. Now, this is unique. Never before has a multilateral coalition frozen the assets of an aggressor country and then harnessed the value of those assets to fund the defense of the aggrieved party, all while respecting the rule of law and maintaining solidarity. These loans will support the people of Ukraine as they defend and rebuild their country. And it's another example of how Mr. Putin's war of aggression has only unified and strengthened the resolve of G7 countries and our partners to defend shared values. And yep, that's it. Thank you. Sorry, I had an extra page in there and I wasn't sure where it was going.
Is the assessment that the presence of North Korean troops can have a meaningful trajectory on the war? And then sadly, you said earlier even that it shows a sign of desperation on the Russians. But does it also demonstrate North Korea's commitment to this burgeoning alliance with Russia? And is that in and of itself a broadening and discouraging concern for America?
So on your first question, too soon to tell, what kind of an impact these troops can have on the battlefield, because we just don't know enough about what the intention is in terms of using them. So I think that's why I said at the top, we're going to monitor this and watch it closely. To your second question, yeah, absolutely. As we've also said, yes, I'd call this a sign of desperation and a sign of weakness. And it's not like Mr. Putin's being very honest with the Russian people about what he's doing here. I mean, Mr. Peskov, his spokesman just the other day, denied knowing anything about it. But we've also talked many, many times about the burgeoning and growing defense relationship between North Korea and Russia, and how reckless and dangerous we think that is, not only for the people of Ukraine, and clearly we'll watch to see what this development means for them, but also for the Indo-Pacific region.
Thank you. With the U.S. diplomats in the region, Mr. Thompson in Lebanon and the Secretary of State in Saudi Arabia now before Israel, do you believe there is a chance now for the ceasefire to be back on the table? And do you believe that with the demise of Mr. Sinwar and Hassan Nasrallah, you have better chances or worse chances for somebody to negotiate with?
The ceasefire you're talking about, I'm assuming, is with Gaza.
I mean, you have Lebanon and you have Gaza implementation 1701 and in Gaza.
Look, the short answer to your question, Nadi, is yes, and we wouldn't be engaged in these diplomatic efforts if we didn't think there was still an opportunity here to get a ceasefire for Gaza that brings the hostages home and increases humanitarian assistance, and certainly a ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah. And as for the implication that the deaths of the two leaders, Nasrallah and Sinwar, as President Biden said last week, that does open up, we believe should open up an opportunity to try to get there. But I don't want to sound too sanguine here. And I'll let Secretary Blinken speak for his travels. He's still on the road. He talked about it a little bit today, that, they had good constructive conversations, specifically with respect to Gaza while he was in Israel. But there's still a lot of work before us.
And one more quickly. The number of civilians killed in Gaza was 779 in the last 20 days, especially in Jabalia. And the total number is 100,000 between the dead and the wounded. 90% of Gaza is destroyed. Does the U.S. still believe that Israel's strategy in Gaza is working? And do you still support it?
We still support Israel's right and responsibility to defend itself against these threats, including the continued threat of Hamas. And we still urge Israel to be ever mindful of civilian casualties and the damage to civilian infrastructure. And we're going to continue to work with them to that end.
Has the U.S. made an assessment of the type of weapons training or what type of training that North Korean soldiers are undergoing in Russia that could potentially be used in Ukraine? And does this represent a new type of an agreement in terms of an information sharing agreement between the Koreans and the Russians?
I don't believe we have a very specific assessment at this time of the exact nature of all the training. There's 3 sites that we assess right now that this first tranche of about 3,000 are being trained. I think I could go so far as to say that, at least in general terms, it's basic kind of combat training and familiarization. I think I could go as far as that and no further. But as I also said, we're going to monitor this and watch this closely. And obviously, if we have more information that we can share with you, we certainly will. To your second question about information sharing, as I've said before, in answer to Amr, we have been watching this relationship grow and deepen now for many, many months. And the question that we're asking ourselves, and we don't have an answer for right now, is what does Kim Jong-un think he's getting out of this? And so you talked about information sharing. I mean, maybe that's part of this. Maybe it's technology. Maybe it's capabilities. We don't have a good sense of that. But that's what's so concerning to us is not only the concern for the impact on the war in Ukraine, but the impact that this could have in the Indo-Pacific with Kim Jong-un benefiting to some degree.
Can you talk about that just briefly? How significant is this for the U.S. allies in the region and the U.S. Gulf?
It could be significant. Again, we don't know enough right now. So when you say region, I think you mean Indo-Pacific. Until we have a better sense of what the North Koreans at least believe they're getting out of this, as opposed to what they actually get, it's hard to know and to put a metric on exactly what the impact is in the Indo-Pacific, but it is concerning. It's been concerning. Certainly this development, this willingness of Kim to literally put skin in the game here. Soldiers in Russia for the potential deployment, and we haven't seen him deployed, but for the potential deployment, certainly would connote an expectation that he thinks he's getting something out of this.
And you mentioned that the U.S. is discussing how we would possibly respond. What are the possibilities for how the U.S. could respond to this?
Well, for one thing, we're going to continue to surge security assistance. As I just mentioned in my topper, and you're going to continue to see the president has made it clear that we're going to continue to provide security assistance all the way up to the end of his administration for sure. So you're going to see that continue to flow, and we're talking to allies and partners about what the right next steps ought to be. I'm not at liberty today to go through any specific options, but we're going to have those conversations, and we have been.
And China is a critical trading partner to North Korea. What's the U.S. assessment for how China is looking at all of this?
We don't know how President Xi and the Chinese are looking at this. One would think that if you take their comments at face value about desiring stability and security in the region, particularly on the Korean Peninsula, one would think that they're also deeply concerned by this development. But you can expect that we'll be communicating with the Chinese about this, and certainly sharing our perspectives to the degree we can, and gleaning theirs.
And local South Korean press is reporting that according to intelligence, these troops, North Korean troops, lack understanding of modern warfare, such as drone attacks, and it's anticipated there will be a high number of casualties when deployed to the front lines.
Too soon to know. I mean, we don't really know what they're going to be used for, where they're going to, if they're going to deploy, where they're going to deploy, and to what purpose. I can tell you one thing though: if they do deploy to fight against Ukraine, they're fair game. They're fair targets. And the Ukrainian military will defend themselves against North Korean soldiers the same way they're defending themselves against Russian soldiers. And so the possibility that there could be dead and wounded North Korean soldiers fighting against Ukraine is absolutely real if they get deployed.
Just to clarify something you said earlier about what Kim Jong-un possibly gets out of this, as far as you know, has he gotten anything in return?
Well, I mean, from this particular move, I can't speak to that, MJ. I don't think we have seen any specific quid pro quo with respect to this provision of troops. But we know that he and Mr. Putin have again been growing in their defense relationship, and we know Mr. Putin has been able to purchase North Korean artillery. He's been able to get North Korean ballistic missiles, which he has used against Ukraine, and in return, we have seen. So at the very least, some technology sharing with North Korea. But what this particular development means going forward, we just don't know. We're going to have to watch that.
And do you know if this came about because Putin specifically first asked for help, or whether it's that Kim Jong-un offered the help first?
Don't know what precipitated it, but I think it's important to remember that in the 3+ years that he's been fighting in and around Ukraine, Mr. Putin and his military has suffered 530,000 casualties. And as we're speaking today, he's losing casualties alone, that's killed and wounded, 1,000 to 1,200 per day. Now, 530,000 is a lot. I mean, there were in the American Civil War, there were like 620,000 killed. Just to put this into some perspective, this is 3 years fighting in Ukraine. 530 casualties is a lot. And he hasn't been fully transparent with the Russian people about this. And he hasn't been transparent at all with the Russian people about this particular move, about bringing in North Korean soldiers. So that he has to farm out the fighting to a foreign country, I think speaks volumes about how much his military is suffering, and how uncertain he believes, how untenable he believes his situation is.
And I guess just if you had to guess, how would the training, what would the training even look like given the language barrier? And once these North Korean soldiers are deployed, what would the command structure do?
It's a great question. I wish we had an answer to it. You're not wrong to highlight the language barrier. I mean, these aren't even similar languages. They're going to have to overcome that. It's not like they have a long productive history of working together as two militaries, even at all. So that's going to be a challenge. Command and control is going to be a challenge. And this is not a challenge that the Russians have even solved amongst themselves. They're still having command and control challenges, logistics and sustainment, getting things to the battlefield, keeping their troops in the field. They haven't solved that for their own soldiers. So they're going to have to figure that out here too. If in fact they deploy, we haven't seen that. So there are some pretty big challenges they're going to have to overcome.
And I had a quick non-Ukraine question. Do you think that Donald Trump needs the definition of fascist?
I'm not gonna talk about that stuff.
John, there's concern among Democrats on the Hill that Donald Trump's team has not entered into these critical transition agreements with the White House that could potentially, in their words, endanger national security. Is that a concern of yours?
Well, look, with the caveat that I'm going to defer to Karine on anything to do with the election and the transition. That's really for her. All I'll say is that no matter how things play out in the election, the National Security Council under Mr. Sullivan's leadership is and will make sure we're ready for proper transition handover.
And there are intelligence officials who have warned that foreign adversaries might be looking to instill violence in the next 13 days ahead of the.
I saw the DNI assessment, yeah.
What are you aware of in preparation?
Well, we're working hard across the interagency, as you might expect, to share information, not only inside at the federal level, but working very hard to make sure we've got good handshakes and information sharing at state and local levels as well. That's the last thing we want, of course, is to see any violence or protest activity that leads to intimidation and that kind of thing. So we're working hard, again, with local and state officials.
Thank you. So, now think of possible invasion and combat in Ukraine to trigger a royal move from the White House, like a decision to lift the restrictions on usage of American weapons.
Yeah. Number one, we're monitoring this closely. And that's where we are right now. I came and gave you a very honest assessment of exactly where we are, and we just don't know if these troops are going to be deployed against Ukraine in combat, and if so, where, when, and how. So, number one, we're monitoring this closely. I don't have any.
And we will continue to monitor this closely. This is an update coming from the White House from John Kirby. He's been speaking there for quite a while, John, taking questions about the confirmation that he says you can expect the U.S. will communicate with China about North Korean troops sent to Russia. Kirby saying at the White House, quote, if North Korean troops deploy in Ukraine, they are fair game.
Surprising that nothing has come up in the briefing about these allegations of Trump praising Hitler for his loyal generals. But we'll see if that comes up when Karine Jean-Pierre takes to the podium, because that, for Kamala Harris's purposes, appears to be the big news of the day.
Indeed.
Surprising it didn't come up.
She just spoke from the Naval Observatory at the top of the last hour. All right, we're watching all of this with just 13 days to go. Can you believe it? Former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris, they are right now hitting the battleground states. Trump about to speak in Georgia, screen left, while Harris, speaking from the White House a short time ago, heads to Pennsylvania. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Sandra Smith in New York. Good to be with you, John.
Good to be with you too, Sandra. I'm John Roberts in Washington. This is America Reports. Before she left Washington, as we mentioned a moment ago, the vice president delivered a sharp rebuke of former President Trump's character, which seems to be the campaign's closing argument. Listen here.
In just the past week, Donald Trump has repeatedly called his fellow Americans the enemy from within, and even said that he would use the United States military to go after American citizens. And let's be clear about who he considers to be the enemy from within. Anyone who refuses to bend a knee or dares to criticize him.
This, as the Trump campaign is business as usual. JD Vance just wrapping a raucous rally in swing state Nevada. And here is a taste of what we heard.
I've got the easiest job in American politics. I've got to remind people that Donald Trump delivered the fastest rising take-home pay in 40 years. If it looks like we're having fun in the Trump campaign, and it looks like the Kamala Harris, Tim Walz campaign is a little bit sad, I think it's because they're terrified of having to continue to explain their record. My friends, the joy is gone. The joy is gone from the Kamala Harris campaign.
So we will break down the latest from Nevada and other battleground polling with Karl Rove. He will be joining me in moments at the touchscreen. But we start with Fox Team coverage, Mark Meredith, on the battle for the Senate. And first, we're going to begin with senior correspondent Jonathan Serry. He's live at an early voting site in Decatur, Georgia. Jonathan, so how does this compare to previous election cycles?
Sandra, Georgia is setting records already. We're looking at more than 2 million early ballots cast. That's more than doubling the figure during the last presidential election in 2020. Knowing who is casting these early ballots and where can help the campaigns tweak their ground games in the 11th hour. But it's challenging to figure out who's ahead here in Georgia because the state, which has an open primary system, does not register voters by party.
People are going to pay attention to if you have access to the voter files and people's prior voter history, the types of ballots that some people may have pulled in primaries, but not everybody participates in primaries, so that's going to be an inexact science.
Using upgraded technology, Georgia election officials conducted a comprehensive U.S. citizenship audit that led to the immediate removal of 20 people from voter rolls.
The 20 individuals who found as non-citizens who were canceled based on individualized information from those people. What it is they signed affidavits to get out of jury duty, basically saying, I am a non-citizen.
And the names of these people were referred to district attorneys' offices in their respective counties for potential prosecution. Sandra?
All right, Jonathan Seri on that for us. Jonathan, thank you.
Meantime, the balance of power in the Senate could hinge on the presidential candidates. Vulnerable Democrats in blue wall states are seemingly distancing themselves from Vice President Kamala Harris and associating with Donald Trump. Mark Meredith joins us live on the set with this story. And boy, they're saying so many bad things about Trump, but there are a lot of people out there who say, hey, I worked with him on this.
It's amazing how much the dynamics can change this late in the race. And a lot of interesting races underway. The presidential race certainly impacting Senate contests all across the country. And some Democratic candidates are keeping their distance from Vice President Harris as these polls tighten. In Pennsylvania, incumbent Democrat Bob Casey's lead has vanished. Cook Political Report now rating it as a toss-up. Casey is also now running ads where he claims he supports some Trump policies.
Casey bucked Biden to protect fracking, and he sided with Trump to end NAFTA.
In Wisconsin, a similar story. Incumbent Tammy Baldwin's race considered a toss-up. She appeared with former President Obama the other day, but skipped appearances with both President Biden and Vice President when they were in the Badger State in recent days. In Ohio, incumbent Senator Sherrod Brown also in a toss-up race. He's the only Democrat elected statewide in the Buckeye State. He's seeking his fourth term, but facing a real challenge. On Friday, the vice president, she's going to head to Texas, where she's going to campaign with Democratic Senate candidate Colin Allred. Democrats already adding a last-minute stop in Texas because they think there's a chance they can unseat Texas Senator Ted Cruz. And in solid blue Maryland, former Republican Governor Larry Hogan, he's facing off against County Executive Angela Alsobrooks. Democrats determined to hold on to the seat, but Hogan is selling himself as a moderate, insisting there's an opening in a state that Trump is likely to lose.
I've got to convince Republicans to stick with me because and convince independents and Democrats that I'm not going to be just a rubber stamp Republican, that I've always stood up to do whatever I think is right for all the people of our state.
And Republicans continue to feel bullish on their Senate majority chances overall, especially with the West Virginia open Senate seat considered a slam dunk for the GOP. So, yes, they have to kind of look at all of these polls, John, but it's interesting to see how they're messaging in this final stretch.
Yeah, it's also interesting to see that Donald Trump initially was against Larry Hogan, and then somebody whispered in his ear, Mr. President, we can pick up a Senate seat if you support him. So he's throwing his support.
Play nice, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's a moderate in a moderate state. That's how you win, right?
And Maryland's going to go blue. I mean, there's not even a doubt about that, obviously, in terms of the presidential, but it's interesting to see how
last time I checked, elections are all about winning. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Mark, great to see you. Thank you. Sandra?
All right. Thank you, John. All right. So the latest headlines showing concern for the Harris campaign. Critics are saying the general theme with them all is that Harris is losing momentum and Democrats are right now running scared. But a lot can happen, obviously, with 13 days to go. So should her team be concerned? We'll ask Karl Rove. He is here, former Deputy White House Chief of Staff and a Fox News contributor. Karl, awesome to have you here. We're going to take a little spin on the touchscreen here so you can tell us what you're watching. First up, we're watching these 7 states. Tell us where we should be looking as I highlight, obviously, Nevada, where we just saw J.D. Vance on the ground there. It appears, according to this latest polling, they are neck and neck in Nevada. We'll talk about Clark County in just a moment. I also want to highlight Georgia because we're going to see Trump there today. This is where Harris is leading by the widest margin over the former president. She has a 4-point lead there. So let's talk about Nevada and what you want to see there, Karl, because this is obviously going to be one of the states we're watching together on election night. And we know, obviously, 2020 election results tell a lot. You look at the states, 2020. You look at Joe Biden, so close.
Yeah.
0.4% margin for Joe Biden in that state. What are you watching here?
Well, first of all, remember, this is a highly urban state. We think of it as a Western state. 71% of the voters in the state live in Clark County, one county, and then about another 17 live in Washoe County. If you can pull that back. Washoe County's up here at the top. And frankly, most of them live right down here.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest of the state is about 17% of the vote. We used to call them, I grew up part of my childhood out there, used to call them the cow counties. Now we're supposed to call them the rurals. But the rurals are overwhelmingly Republican. Washoe County is a battleground, and Clark County tends to be Democrat. Here's the big difference from 4 years ago. 4 years ago, the Democrats had a registration advantage of over 100,000 more Democrats registered than Republicans. Used to be the rule of thumb was you had to have the registration gap less than 100,000 for Republicans to have a shot at the state. Today, 19,000. 19,000 more Democrats than Republicans. There's been a surge of both Republican registrations and of the unaffiliateds. 30% of the voters are Democrats, 29% Republicans, 8% are minor third parties, and the rest of them are people who decline to stay with party prep.
You know, it's interesting. Percentage points in 2020, Hillary Clinton, the margin was even smaller in Washoe County. 2016, what the state level, because we were looking at the 2020 election results with Joe Biden's 2.4% margin of victory. Hillary Clinton 2.4% in 2016.
Hit any one of those red counties, particularly.
Sure.
Yeah, there we go. That is Elko County, Elko, Nevada, 73%.
Yeah.
Now carry it forward.
Yeah.
Hit it in 24.
Oh,
in 20. Excuse me, in 20. 76%.
Yeah.
That's what the red part of Nevada looks like. So Washoe County, the object is to keep it close, reduce the Democrat margin in Clark County, and run it up in the cow counties or the rural.
All right. So let's take a look as we jump back to the entire country here and we look at Georgia. We know Trump wants to focus a lot of his energy on the ground there today. He was in North Carolina yesterday. Talk about some of these surrounding counties. Obviously, we know just how deep blue Atlanta is, Fulton County. Joe Biden won this county in 2020 by 46 percentage points. But what are you watching around here, Carl?
Well, this is a challenge because if you go to some of these other counties like Cobb, they used to be reliably Republican, but we're seeing a defection of college-educated suburbanites, particularly college-educated suburban women. And what Trump has got to do is he's got to try and hold that to as low as he possibly can, and then run it up in the ex-urban counties beyond the inner cities of Atlanta and then out of the rural. Think about this: red area north of Atlanta. There are 3 congressional districts that run up there, and as you can see, the most Republican Forsyth is most Republican county. Forsyth and Cherokee are the most Republican counties in the greater metropolitan area of Atlanta. But you get up in those other counties up there further, and they're even redder than those 2 counties.
Where do you think the Trump campaign should be focusing most of their energy when it comes to the issues in places like Georgia?
Well, look, the issues are national. He has consistently led on the issue of the economy, inflation, and the border. And it's a threesome, and keep going at it.
Yeah.
And the problem is that he's got to be disciplined in doing that because she's eating away at those margins. In our own Fox poll, I think his advantage on the border a month ago was 20 points. Now it's 15. His advantage on the economy was like 15. It's now 8. She doesn't need to win those issues, but if she dampens his advantage on them, it's going to be a problem.
And you look at that the polling in Georgia right now. That is where she is leading by the most over the former president, with 47% to him, 51% there.
Remember, though, this is one poll.
Correct.
And what every day I look at 3 averages, 3 aggregators, 538 Real Clear Politics and Silver Bulletin, and I literally write them down on a blue piece of paper so I can keep track of them. And what you get from that is these are much closer than that. If you take a look at the averages of the 21 data points, 7 states times 3 different aggregators, there are 15 today. 15 of them are less than 1%.
You're throwing us off here with a blue piece of paper. What about the whiteboard, Carl?
Well, and the whiteboard, you can't just travel around. I can put the blue piece of paper in my pocket for the day, but the whiteboard is still there. Don't worry about it.
Always a pleasure. Love this. Thank you so much. Really great information. Thanks, Carl. All right, John.
Yeah, also, if he leans against the whiteboard with his sleeve, he erases it, right? The growing numbers of black voters shifting away from supporting him. Our panel on that later on this hour. Plus, the sister of murdered Army soldier Vanessa Guillen pushing back on an Atlantic piece about former President Trump. She says the Atlantic is, quote, exploiting my sister's death for politics. Juan Williams and Mary Catherine Ham ready to react. Coming up next.
Believe the family. Vanessa Guillen's own sister and mother came out yesterday and specifically said that Donald Trump could not have been more gracious, caring, and loving as a commander-in-chief.
I'm out here telling people how they can save money with experience. You look like someone who has a lot of subscriptions.
I have a lot.
Too many, I'd say. You can see your subscriptions all in one place and cancel the ones you don't like. Dude, that's so easy.
I actually need that.
Get started now with the Experian app.
These bills are crazy.
She has no idea she's sitting on a gold mine. She doesn't know that if she owns a life insurance policy of $100,000 or more, she can sell all or part of it to Coventry for cash, even a term policy. Even a term policy? Even a term!
Find out if you're sitting on a gold mine. Call Coventry Direct today at 800-496-9200 or visit coventrydirect.com.
People diagnosed with mesothelioma have many questions. That's why we've offered a free book about mesothelioma for over 10 years. Mesothelioma is really all we do.
Call 800-500-5202 or go to mesobook.com.
Have you always had trouble losing weight and keeping it off? Same.
Discover the power of Wegovy.
In the marching on to the beat I drum. With Wegovy, I lost 35 pounds. And some lost over 46 pounds.
Wegovy. And I'm keeping the weight off.
Wegovy helps you lose weight and keep it off.
I'm reducing my risk.
Wegovy is the only FDA-approved weight management medicine that's proven to reduce risk of major cardiovascular events in adults with known heart disease and with either obesity or overweight. Wegovy should be used with semaglutide or GLP-1 medicines. Don't take Wegovy if you or your family have medullary thyroid cancer, multiple endocrine neoplasia syndrome type 2, or if allergic to it. Stop Wegovy and get medical help right away if you get a lump or swelling in your neck, severe stomach pain, or an allergic reaction. Serious side effects may happen, including pancreatitis and gallbladder problems. Wegovy may cause low blood sugar in people with diabetes, especially if you take medicines to treat diabetes. Tell your provider about vision problems or changes, or if you feel your heart racing while at rest. Depression or thoughts of suicide may occur. Call your provider right away if you have any mental changes. Common side effects like nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea may lead to dehydration, which may cause kidney problems.
With Wegovy,
I'm losing weight.
I'm keeping it off.
And I'm lowering my CV risk. That's the power of winning.
Check your cost and coverage before talking to your healthcare professional about Wegovy.
Glenn Youngkin on your world. As the presidential election closes in, the Virginia governor weighs in on what's at stake for Americans. Neil has the must-see interview today.
That's ludicrous. But I got you. Hang on. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Moisturizes, heals, and smooths your dry skins. Gold Bond for all your skins.
Introducing the Wendy's Krabby Patty Collab Burger. It has fresh, never frozen beef that's, wait for it, square. Are you ready? And I'm ready. For the Krabby Patty Collab meal you're craving, gotta be Wendy's.
Visit lifeisgood.com and find gifts for everyone in your orbit.
And 10% of profits help kids.
Do you have a favorite non-alcoholic beer on the menu?
That's what I can do.
The pasta party has begun at Fazoli's for just $4. You can save with spaghetti with marinara, spaghetti with pizza, or cheesy fettuccine Alfredo. Yep, you heard that right. Only $4 for your favorite Fazoli products, including our legendary garlic breadsticks. For a limited time, only at Fazoli's.
Vice President Kamala Harris weighing in following a series of interviews from former President Trump's longest-serving chief of staff, General John Kelly. In those interviews, Kelly said Trump met the definition of a fascist and wanted generals like the ones who served under Hitler. Here's the vice president last hour.
This is a window into who Donald Trump really is. From the people who know him best, from the people who worked with him side by side in the Oval Office and in the Situation Room. And it is clear from John Kelly's words that Donald Trump is someone who, I quote, certainly falls into the general definition of fascist, who in fact vowed to be a dictator on day one and vowed to use the military as his personal militia to carry out his personal and political vendettas.
This comes on the heels of controversy over an Atlantic article claiming that Trump made disparaging remarks regarding funeral costs for slain soldier Vanessa Guillen. The sister of Vanessa Guillen is denouncing the report along with Trump's national security advisor, Kash Patel.
President unilaterally stated, we're going to give her the honor and dignity she needs and her family assistance she needs. President ensured that the Department of Defense gave Vanessa Guillen full military honors and paid for the entire financial package that was needed to secure and honor her memory. And if you don't want to believe me, a person who was there in the Oval Office along with Chris Miller, then believe the family. Vanessa Guillen's own sister and mother came out yesterday and specifically said that Donald Trump could not have been more gracious, caring, and loving as a commander-in-chief. And they said that what the Atlantic printed were outright lies, and they're desecrating the memory of the fallen.
A lot to unpack over the next few minutes. Let's do it with our panel. Juan Williams, Fox News senior political analyst, and Mary Catherine Hammond, Outkick columnist and a Fox News contributor. So, Kamala Harris picking up on John Kelly's interviews and things in a couple of publications about Trump being a fascist, which is really a line that the Democrats are trying to drive. Yeah. Is she trying to change minds in the last 13 days or just motivate her voters to get out to the polls?
I think both. I mean, you think about who are the voters that are being targeted right now by both campaigns. And one of those groups is Republicans who did not vote for Trump in the primaries, the Nikki Haley voters, John. And I think that the idea that you have Republicans like Kelly, who was his chief of staff, speaking against Trump and saying he has this fascist instinct is a message that the Harris campaign wants to send to those suburban moderates.
But don't the suburban moderates say, well, this has got to be 6 years ago. Kelly's written books about his time in the administration. Why is he waiting until 14 days before the election to come out?
Well, there's a couple parts to the story. Whenever you have a splashy October surprise, you have to go through it and figure out how much you're willing to believe, right? General John Kelly is a person I take seriously, who had a lot of exposure to Trump and who is putting his name on this. So that part of it is important. And whether it matters to those voters, I think is another question. This does feel like more like base service than it does to convincing unconvinced voters, because those guys have heard everything about Trump over the years. The other part of this story about the Gold Star family and their reputations of it, that doesn't have a named source. It has one anonymous source. And so when I hear reputations from people who are putting their names on the line, who were in the room, who say this didn't happen, I start getting questions about how much should I believe this story?
Yeah, to me, I wasn't in the room. You weren't in the room. John wasn't in the room. So we don't know.
Right, but we're weighing evidence.
That's what I'm about to say to you, to just put in context. He said a lot of negative things about Mexicans, beginning with when he first came down the Golden Escalator, when he then went off about the Mexican-American judge in Indiana. I mean, there's a pattern there. We're actually ignore what Trump says about German generals, about Arnold Palmer, about his rant. We just say, don't pay attention. Excuse
no, you're not asked to ignore, but you are asked to verify. Just because you can imagine him saying things doesn't absolve you from having a couple sources.
So let me jump in here, because I talked to three of the people who were in the room. I talked to Chris Miller, the former acting Secretary of Defense, Kash Patel, and Ben Williams. They all say, never happened. I think they know who it was who leaked this stuff. I don't want to say because I don't know for sure. But I was in the room in the Oval Office when the family of Vanessa Guillen came in. And that's when Trump offered to help them out with funeral expenses. Listen here.
Some families need help.
They need help. I don't even know if you need help. Maybe you don't need help from a financial standpoint. I have no idea what I just think it's a horrific thing that happened. And if you did need help, I'll be there to help you.
So this report in the Atlantic says that they did send him the bill, and that's when he said the disparaging remark. But here's what Myra Guillen, who was Vanessa Guillen's sister, older sister, said. Wow, I don't appreciate how you are exploiting my sister's death for politics. This is to the Atlantic. Hurtful and disrespectful to the important changes she made for service members. President Donald Trump did nothing but show respect to my family and Vanessa. In fact, I voted for President Trump today. So there you have the sister of the person who he allegedly disparaged saying, I voted for him. That kind of blows all of this out of the water, doesn't it?
If the Atlantic doesn't have a good source, but the thing is, and I think
not one that they're willing to name.
I think you have reported this out, and I think that you have a strong sense, and I have a strong sense of who the likely source is. And the likely source would be a military person, and I'm just not going to call him a liar.
Well, I'm also not going to call the family a liar, right? The words of the Gold Star family should matter regardless of who they're willing to trash or support in public. And it mattered when it was Khizr Khan, and it matters when it's this family. The other question I would ask is, could I get a similarly sourced story on Kamala Harris of similar fantastic claim published anywhere? I do not believe I could.
Right.
Certainly not the Atlantic.
And not the New York Times, not the Washington Post. There's this other thing that happened in Concord, New Hampshire yesterday. A lot of people are saying Biden said the quiet part out loud. Listen here.
I mean, so I know this sounds bizarre. It sounds like if I said this 5 years ago, they'd lock me up. We got to lock him up. Lock him out. That's what we have to do.
We got to lock him up, and then he comes in and says, politically, clearly he realized what he said. A lot of people believe the truth is the first thing that comes out of your mouth. One, there's been a lot of talk about politicization of the DOJ, that if you can't beat him, get him off the streets by locking him up. Did Biden just confirm that that's the plan?
No, but he made a gaffe, and I think it was not a good one for him. I think it looked terrible to me, and I think that it opened the door to a lot of people who then want to say, oh, this is weaponization and all that, the evidence of it. In fact, I don't, this sounds harsh. Now, I don't mean it that way. You guys know me, but I don't think he's relevant to this campaign. He's not the one running. And I think the second thought I have is, boy, he looked old in that clip now. And, to me, it's like, you get two old men, Trump, Biden, they often say things off script. They go off, they say these wild things. To me, Biden's on the trail to some extent. They're trying to keep him off the trail, I think. But Trump is on the trail, and his supporters are trying to just protect him, even as he damages himself.
I mean, this guy's literally the president. Maybe he should know what he's saying, or he shouldn't be the president. He should give the job to his vice president. Nonetheless, he's cutting against the message of Kamala Harris in this moment, and it does add to evidence that he might like to lock his opponents up.
And he is the leader of the administration in which the DOJ is housed. So people are making that connection. Folks, great to see you. The next 13 days are going to be incredibly exciting, aren't they?
They are.
All right. And with that, Sandra, we've got some other things to present to the folks at home.
Well, on that comment, did Biden call to lock him up? Karine Jean-Pierre just answered a question about that at the White House. John, listen.
The president spoke about this very clearly as well in his statement, and he said he meant lock him out politically. Politically, lock him out. That's what he said, and that's what we have to do. That was the part of his quote that he said last night while he was in New Hampshire. Look. Let's not forget, this is a president that has never shied away from being very clear and laying down what is at stake in this election. Politically lock him out. That is what he was referring to.
Well, he first said twice, lock him out. So, and he said lock him up. He meant.
Well, it's not what I'm saying. It's what he said. He said to the audience. Right, exactly. He clarified himself. He wanted to make sure that things were put into context.
So we'll provide the verbatim for those at home to decide. He said, quote, I know this sounds bizarre. It sounds like I said this 5 years ago. You've locked me up. We got to lock him up. But he appeared to her point, instantly catch himself and added politically lock him up, lock him out. That's what we have to do.
I've always believed that the heart is revealed in the first thing that escapes your lips, not the second thing after your brain says, "Holy crap, what did I just say?" We want to come back to the murder of Vanessa Guillen and all of this stuff about Trump and what he might have said. Myra Guillen, who is her older sister, will be appearing with Laura Ingraham on The Angle tonight.
It's just overrun. We don't have space for everybody. So the housing has been taken over and our schools have been taken over. Pretty much.
Well, a community in Indiana paying the price as it is inundated by migrants. The community's message to the current administration.
Plus, the New York Post reporting, quote, the Biden-Harris administration is shipping migrants to Arizona and Texas to hide the border problem before Election Day. San Diego Supervisor Jim Desmond says he has seen it firsthand. He's on deck to react just ahead.
The Pope is dead. The responsibility for the conclave falls upon you. Be careful, Thomas. This is not a war.
It is a war. You have to commit to a side.
I think I've heard enough secrets. Conclave, rated PG, only in theaters this Friday.
It's odd how, in an instant, things can transform. Slipping out of balance into free fall. I'm glad I found stability amidst gold. Standing the test of time.
I've been warned by celebrities, athletes, and world leaders, but I've always felt most comfortable up here with the folks that made me who I am. I'm right at home out here on the land, and I'm in my lane on the shoulder of the interstate because this is where I come from. I've been showing up here for nearly 200 years, and I can't wait to see what's next.
Hats off to the future.
Nothing runs like a deer.
Stay tuned to learn more about this limited time offer from Renewal by Andersen.
When it comes to our homes, we only want the very best, particularly when it comes to choosing replacement windows and doors. Hi, I'm Ann Romer, thrilled to be with Nick from Renewal by Andersen.
Thanks, Ann. We believe that everyone deserves to have windows and doors that look great, stand the test of time, and don't break the bank.
And with our unpredictable weather, I got to tell you, quality and durability, super important.
Absolutely. And that's where our Fibrex composite material truly shines. It's twice as strong as vinyl, so it's warranted not to crack or rot. And with our energy efficient glass, our windows help keep your home cozy in the winter and cool in summer.
Well, that all sounds great. So what about the cost?
We know that affordability is top of mind for every homeowner. And we pride ourselves on delivering outstanding windows and doors to fit your style and your budget.
Wow, that really sets you apart. So tell me how Renewal by Andersen is tied to the community.
Well, for starters, our team members live right here in your community. We know the challenges homeowners face, and we are committed to delivering the very best for our customers. Plus, we custom build every exclusive acclaim replacement window in the USA.
It is great to know that you have such strong roots here.
Before October 31st, buy one window, patio door, or entry door and get the next one 40% off. That's 40% off with a minimum purchase of 4. Plus, save an extra $35 on every window and door you buy with no money down, no monthly payments, and no interest for 12 months. This offer ends October 31st. For a free appointment with Renewal by Andersen, call 1-800-704-4200. That's 1-800-704-4200.
Big changes are coming to Medicare and your coverage could be affected. Even if you've had your plan for a while, you may need to rethink your options. Call Plan Enroll for your free Medicare coverage review. With access to plans from many leading insurance companies, our licensed insurance agents can help make sure you don't go to your doctor uncovered. They take time to learn about your needs personally. Then, when you're ready, they can help you enroll in the plan that fits you best. Take control of your coverage choices by calling Plan Enroll today. A moment of peace, brought to you by Cozy Earth. Find your sanctuary at CozyEarth.com.
Tired of sciatic nerve pain radiating down your leg and lower back? Get relief, finally, with MagnaLife Leg and Back Pain Relief, a combination of 4 active ingredients that get to work fast. So get living.
Available at your local retailer.
I definitely won't be voting for Harris because she's not doing anything. If she says she's going to do something, why not do something now? You're bringing and letting people come here, and we can't sustain these people, these small communities.
An Indiana mother speaking out about the surge of migrants in her small community. It's a story that we brought you yesterday from Logansport, Indiana, where the town's resources are being overwhelmed by thousands of migrants who came to the U.S. under Biden-Harris immigration policies. Our Garrett Tenney is live in Logansport, which is about 80 miles north of Indianapolis. How is this flood of people impacting that community, Garrett?
John, just to remind folks, we're talking about more than 3,000 Haitian migrants who have moved to this town over the last 3 years. Now, granted, for a city the size of New York City, that may not be that many, but here in a place like Logansport, that is a 20 to 30% increase in the total population. So this is creating a lot of issues. Not only are city resources being strained, the health department says it is seeing an uptick in cases of diseases like TB, AIDS, and HIV. Car accidents and driving violations have jumped 30%. And a lot of longtime residents say they don't feel completely safe anymore like they did just a few years ago.
It just keeps on getting worse and worse. They keep bringing them in, and they run the whole streets at nighttime.
They need to go back to where they came from. Because there's too many here. They're taking over the town, actually.
The same thing could happen to any other little town across the country where you're not immune to this. So we have to say something now.
The police chief says there hasn't been any increase in crime, but talking to folks here, the biggest concern we keep hearing about is the huge cultural differences that exist coming from a third world country, which has led some to feel unsafe and uncomfortable in their own homes.
They don't walk in just 1 or 2 of them. There are 5, 6, 7 of them, and they stop right in front of your house and just stare at you. We have cameras on our porch now. They would come up on our porch and grab some of the baby's toys, and I'll be sitting and looking at them, and I'll come out like, hey, that's ours. And they just look at me and put it down and walk away. They say nothing. It's unnerving.
This surge of Haitians is also impacting the schools. In 2021, the district had just 14 Haitian students. Today, there are more than 200, most of whom don't speak English when they arrive. The school superintendent tells us so far neither she nor any of her principals have received reports of students not getting the attention that they need. But no question, city resources are being strained, and the mayor wants Washington to step up and help. John?
Yeah, it's kind of surprising that they haven't heard any of those reports, because we have one of a 16-year-old honor student who dropped out and is now being homeschooled with classes online because she couldn't get the attention that she needed from her teachers. Garrett Tenney for us in Logansport. Garrett, thank you. Sandra?
All right, John, stunning new claims amid the ongoing border crisis. San Diego County Supervisor Jim Desmond says the Biden administration shipping migrants from the San Diego sector to other border towns in an effort to make this migrant crisis look better before Election Day. He joins us now. Welcome to you. What can you tell us is happening?
Well, Sandra, since September of last year until June of this year, we had over 155,000 people just dropped off at our transit station here in San Diego County. We heard about a week ago that because of the overwhelming number of people still coming across the San Diego sector, our Border Patrol agents just can't process them. They were going to start again with the street drop-offs just last week. And I thought, well, that's not going to look good for the administration. And sure enough, what they're doing now, instead of doing street drop-offs here, they are shipping people 3 bus loads a day to Yuma, Arizona. They're also flying people out of here, about 3 to 4 flights a day, to Texas and other parts of the country, and people ending up in places like Logansport and elsewhere. But they're busing them out of here, I think, just for the optics of not, having these street drop-offs like we used to have here in San Diego County. So I think it's the old bait and switch, and they don't want us to have this happening right before the election.
Yeah, and I want to cover a few data points that we are seeing when it comes to the San Diego sector, sir, and border crossings. They do appear to be up more than 40%. This is an incredible increase that so many are dealing with there. While the White House seems to be celebrating the recent numbers, touting them as actually down, border crossings have dropped, the White House says, by more than 55% to the lowest levels in over 4 years. Encounters between ports of entry are lower than they were during the last several months of the previous administration. The Biden-Harris administration has taken effective action, and Republican officials continue to do nothing. This, as we see numbers like this, Jim, we can put them up on the screen. The number of migrants that have been allowed to lawfully enter the U.S. via Biden-Harris programs, those numbers continue to surge. Okay, and this, as our own Griff Jenkins just moments ago confirmed that NBC report from this morning, that the DHS has now identified more than 600 migrants with possible ties to the violent Venezuelan gangs. I want to get your final thoughts, Jim.
Well, I mean, those numbers are huge, but they don't even anywhere near reflecting what's really happening. We have boats coming every other day here, landing on our shores, and people just abandoning the boats, 15, 20 people at a time, just jumping off, going into our neighborhoods and able to go free. California, unfortunately, is a sanctuary state where they know once they get across the border, our local law enforcement can't do anything to enforce immigration law here. So unfortunately, California is still putting out the red carpet. San Diego sector is being inundated. And to deal with that, the president and the Biden administration is shipping them to other places in the country.
That's a big statement, Jim. I appreciate your time today. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
All right, John.
Senator Donald Trump making a final push in battleground Georgia in the next hour, where black voters will be critical. Gianno Caldwell and Fred Hicks on the state of play in the Peach State and some other battlegrounds. Just ahead.
I'd like to take a moment to address my fellow veterans, because I know so many of you have served our country honorably. One of the benefits that we as a country give you as a veteran is the eligibility for a VA loan, or up to 100% of your home's value. If you need cash for your family, call New Day USA. With automatic authority from the VA, we can say yes when banks say no. Give us a call.
Call 1-844-383-1541.
Create a backyard that's out of this world. Right now, save $50 on the MSA 60 CB battery chainsaw. Real steel. Find yours.
Have you compared your Medicare plan recently? With eHealth, you can compare Medicare plans side by side for free. So we invited people to give eHealth a try and discover how easy it can be to find your Medicare match.
This is pretty amazing. I can go on a vacation with this money. I have quite a few prescriptions.
That's why people.
That's great. Oh, wonderful.
I have a hard time with this. You're so helpful. You don't know. Thank you very much. Oh, yeah, that was super easy.
See how your Medicare plan stacks up with the big changes for 2025. Just call this number or get started at ehealth.com. Compare plans that cover your doctors, prescriptions, pharmacies, and budgets. And compare plans from the nation's top insurance companies. They pay us to help you. How much do you think you'll be able to save using eHealth?
At least $300 a month.
Would you say you found your Medicare match?
Yes, I did. Well, Sam, she explained to me exactly what I need to know.
Well, I have a surprise for you. Cham, come on out. Oh. Face to face.
You've helped me out quite a bit.
Your advisors. They're paid the same no matter which Medicare Advantage plan you choose.